The dirt on my father's grave was still fresh when my stepmother threw my duffel bag down the grand marble staircase. "Pack your things and get back to your military base," Candace shouted. "This estate belongs to me now. You have no place here." Beside her, my half-brother Julian waved an old copy of my father's will like a trophy. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply picked up my bag and looked Candace straight in the eyes. Okay. What they didn't know was that just 48 hours before my father died, I had secretly inherited control of his real fortune. More than $40 million. My name is Willow Grant. I'm 32 years old and I've spent the last decade serving as a U.S. Army major. I've led soldiers through dangerous missions and learned one important lesson: when chaos strikes, stay calm. But nothing prepared me for what happened inside my own childhood home. My father, Arthur Grant, had died suddenly from heart failure. I rushed home on emergency leave, arriving in Virginia as heavy rain fell over the fresh flowers at his memorial. Still wearing my service uniform, I walked through the doors of Grant Manor, expecting to mourn in peace. Instead, Candace and Julian were waiting for me. Candace stood at the top of the staircase, dressed in expensive black silk and diamonds. Julian stood beside her, holding a blue folder. "Don't bother unpacking, Willow," Candace said coldly. "Your father is gone and so is your welcome." Julian opened the folder. "Dad's old will says everything goes to Mom and me. The estate, the company shares, even the Manhattan penthouse." He smiled. "You chose the army instead of the family business. So you get nothing." Candace stepped closer. "We were here taking care of Arthur. You were thousands of miles away." I said nothing. They had no idea what I had done during my father's final months. While I was stationed away, I had arranged his medical appointments, checked on him between military briefings, and stayed in constant contact with his doctors. Candace had been spending his money on luxury vacations. Julian had been wasting his money on expensive cars and trying to hide his gambling debts. Neither of them knew that my father had discovered everything. 2 days before his death, his longtime attorney Raymond Vance had secretly met me in Richmond. He placed a sealed leather folder on the table. Inside were financial audits, corporate records, and investigation reports. My father had uncovered millions being moved from his companies into fake corporations controlled by Candace and Julian. He had also discovered Candace's betrayal. But Arthur had already made his move. He had cancelled the 5-year-old will Julian was waving around. Instead, he created an irrevocable family trust. And he named me as its primary beneficiary. The trust contained commercial properties across 3 states, controlling shares in defense technology companies, and more than $40 million in investments and liquid assets. "Your father wanted you protected," Raymond told me. He was right. My father knew exactly what Candace and Julian would do after his death. But his final plan went even further. He didn't simply cut them out. He made their greed work against them. Before he died, Arthur had placed huge debts against the properties they thought they were inheriting. The manor carried more than $3.2 million in mortgages. The Manhattan penthouse had millions in outstanding improvement loans. And the debts connected to several struggling manufacturing companies had been transferred into shell companies tied to Candace and Julian's illegal financial activities. Meanwhile, the legitimate assets and money had been moved safely into my trust. Candace and Julian believed they were about to inherit a fortune. They had no idea they had just claimed the debts instead. And I was standing there holding the keys to the real empire. They thought they had thrown me out of my father's house. They didn't realize they had just thrown out the woman who now controlled the entire fortune. In reality, the assets Candace and Julian were fighting so hard to claim were drowning in more than $5 million in debt, unpaid taxes, and urgent notices from angry vendors. By demanding every property listed in the outdated will, they were walking straight into a financial trap. They thought they were taking control of a fortune. They had no idea the real wealth had already been transferred into my trust 48 hours before my father died. The official estate meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. inside the glass-walled executive boardroom of Grant Enterprises. Candace and Julian arrived 20 minutes early. They were dressed like royalty preparing for a coronation. Candace wore an expensive cream-colored suit and carried a designer handbag. Julian walked behind her, scrolling through his phone as if he already owned the entire company. Their corporate lawyer sat beside them with the old 5-year-old will spread across the table. When the doors opened, they expected to see me broken and desperate. Instead, I walked in wearing my perfectly pressed army uniform. My posture was straight. My expression was calm. Beside me stood Raymond Vance, carrying 2 sealed briefcases. Behind him was a team of senior financial auditors. Candace leaned back with a smug smile. "Major Grant," she said sweetly, "I hope you've accepted that today's meeting is only a formality. We're even willing to give you a small relocation payment." Raymond didn't answer. He opened the first briefcase. Then he placed several certified legal documents on the table. "The document you're holding," he said, "was officially revoked 6 weeks before Arthur Grant's death." Candace's smile disappeared. Raymond continued. "Under the Whitaker Grant Irrevocable Trust, Major Willow Grant is the sole beneficiary of more than $40 million in liquid assets, proprietary technology patents, and valuable commercial holdings." The room went silent. Candace's face turned pale. Raymond opened another folder. "As for the manor and the shell companies you fought so aggressively to claim, you own them." He paused. "Along with approximately $5.4 million in immediate debt obligations." Julian froze. Their lawyer quickly grabbed the documents and began reading through them. His hands started shaking. After several minutes, he quietly told Candace, "They're legitimate. The filings are binding." Candace suddenly jumped to her feet. "This is fraud," she screamed. "Arthur would never do this to us." He pointed at me. "You manipulated him, Willow." Julian grabbed the edge of the table. His expensive cars, club memberships, and luxurious lifestyle were all connected to corporate accounts that were now being frozen by creditors. The reality was finally sinking in. They hadn't inherited a fortune. They had inherited a mountain of debt. I calmly walked toward the head of the table. "My father didn't manipulate you, Candace." I looked directly into her eyes. "He simply allowed you to collect what you spent months creating behind his back." Then I pressed the intercom. Within seconds, building security entered the room. I looked at Candace and remembered the cruel smile she'd given me on the staircase. "Security will escort you out," I said calmly. Then I added, "because just like you told me, you don't belong here." 3 months later, the manor was seized and sold at auction. Julian declared bankruptcy and eventually took an entry-level logistics job to deal with his creditors. Candace moved into a small suburban apartment, her luxury lifestyle completely gone. As for me, I used the $40 million inheritance to establish the Arthur Grant Veteran Transition Foundation. The foundation provided housing assistance, career training, and support programs for veterans returning to civilian life. Standing outside its new headquarters, I finally understood my father's true legacy. It wasn't money. It wasn't property. It was honor, discipline, and using what you have to help others. For the first time since his death, I felt at peace. My father had left me an empire. But I chose to turn that empire into something meaningful. So tell me, what would you have done if you were in my position? Share your thoughts in the comments and follow for more powerful stories.